This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the Samsung Galaxy Tab S7 Plus, which means the bigger of the two S7 tablets. It's available for 2020 from Samsung. These are their high-end offerings, and this one is 12.4 inches. I did an initial first look review of this, and now several weeks later, this is going to be the final review. The first one was pretty comprehensive, so I'm going to talk more about the competition, what it's like to live with this, and a bit more about the smaller size one as well. We're going to look at it now. And now a shout out to our sponsor of this video, Keeper Security, otherwise known as that password manager or cybersecurity password manager. Keep you safe. Family, business, individual, you name it. So, of course, there's a password manager, so you can keep all your passwords in there, but it's got other features as you would expect for a full-featured password and security manager. It does things like security audit, so I can go through and look at all of your passwords and tell you which ones are not secure. So notice on my screen right here, that one that's not secure is because that's a fake account with a password of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Don't do that. They also have an add-on called Breach Watch, and what that does is it goes out in the dark web and it sees where your credentials might be flying around and up for sale. They offer multi-device sync as well, and now they have multi-year plans too. You can save up to 30% if you can go for 2-year or 3-year subscriptions, individual, family, you name it. Be sure to visit the link in the description and save 20% on individual and family plans and any add-ons. And now, back to our video. So the Tab S7 and S7 Plus are the most premium of Samsung's Android tablets. Android, these are not Windows tablets. And it starts at $650 for the smaller one and $850 for the larger one. If you want 5G, yes, it has 5G and millimeter wave plus sub-6, so all the 5G flavors in the United States. And then add $200 more onto that price tag. If you want more storage, you can get this with 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. They all have micro SD card slots. And if you want to go up to 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage, add another $100. If you want to go to 512 gigs of storage, still 8 gigs of RAM, another $100. So in other words, these are pricey pieces that obviously are designed to compete with the iPad Pro models. But at least you get the S Pen in the box, so no extra $100 spend just to get the pen to work with these things. Keyboard is sold separately. We'll talk about the keyboard. So the S7 is an 11-inch tablet, and the bigger S7 Plus that we have here is a 12.4-inch tablet. So for those of you who remember years ago, what was it, the Galaxy Note 12.2 or something like that, which had S Pen. Back then there was not much competition for lovely tablets that were thin, light, had pens and nice screens. So I know a lot of you have been waiting, God, how many years has it been for something like that from Samsung again? Of course, things have changed over the many years since that tablet came out. Now you have things like the Surface Pro, for example, Surface Pro 7 being the most current of that, and priced actually not so differently than the Tab bigger sizes, the Tab S7 Plus. For those of you who are looking for a laptop replacement size tablet. Also, obviously, there's the iPad Pro. You got the 12.9-inch, and then you have the 11-inch there. So there are alternatives, and of course, there are a few others too. Now, if you really just like Android tablets, goodness, you know, that can be a challenge. We'll talk about that too. But and you don't want to spend this money, but you do want an S Pen. There is the Samsung Galaxy Tab S6 Lite that we reviewed. There is no S7 Lite yet. So that one is way, way cheaper. And you still get the S Pen and a pretty competent display on it. So also consider that. Check our channel. We have a review of that. Anyway. Back to this one, Snapdragon 865 Plus CPU, so no one generation old like we used to see with Android tablets. That's the same one processor you're going to get like in the Note 20 Ultra in the United States. Yeah, that, no Exynos here in the United States. So this will feel every bit as fast as a Samsung flagship phone or anybody's flagship phone in 2020. Awesome that. Also good for running Samsung's DeX, which is their desktop-like environment. For those of you who want to turn this into something sort of like a desktop. Now, Samsung DeX is pretty cool. I mean, you get a windowing system, which means resizable windows you can drag around. And Samsung hasn't devoted a lot of resources, I get a feeling, to DeX, but just enough to get it working. So it can be quirky, it can be buggy. I know there are those of you out there who love DeX, though, so you're going to be happy to have this at all. And it can help sometimes with things like websites that still format themselves for mobile. Sometimes I choose desktop mode, and unless I switch to DeX as well, then I don't get the desktop mode. That's some of the foibles of Android there. For cameras, you're looking at competent cameras. These are not class leading. It's going to replace your Galaxy S20 or something like that in terms of cameras, but you've got pretty competent mirror, 13 megapixel main camera and a 5 megapixel wide camera. They're reasonably good. This is a tablet, folks, so hey. If you go with the Tab S7, that 11-inch display is an IPS class display, but it's no second-class citizen, really. It looks very sharp and very colorful, too. And if you get the bigger one, it is an OLED display. These are 16 by 10 aspect ratio displays, so if you prefer something a bit less, widescreen, well, that Surface Pro has a 3 by 2 aspect ratio display, obviously. Apple iPads are a bit more squared off. So for productivity, I prefer something not as widescreen as the Tab S7 family, but for watching movies, obviously, it's nice. And it can be a little bit easier to carry around and hold because it's not so big in both dimensions there. So that one's up to you as to which aspect ratio you would prefer on a tablet. These both have Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5, and a GPS. 5G, like I said, is optional, $200 more if you want that. Overseas, not in the United States, you can get it with 4G LTE, I hear, and that's $100 more, but not in the US. So, in terms of Android on tablets, everybody says this. This is nothing new probably to you. Much as the hardware on this is delightful, it's beautiful, it's first class. It might be a little iPad Pro derivative with those straight sides and that whole kind of look like that. The problem is there are still a lot of Android apps that are not optimized for tablets. So, for example, look at Twitter on the screen. This is like Twitter for the blind. It's just immense. It's huge. It's not making any better use of the screen real estate. There are more Android apps that have that problem because, for better or worse, the iPad kind of owns the tablet space. So developers have made thousands upon thousands of tablet optimized apps for iPads and iPad OS, but here that's going to be the drawback. I think that's why some people are drawn to Samsung DeX, because it gives you that desktop mode and everything isn't so darn blown up. That is what it is. If you're an Android fan and you hate iOS and you're not looking for the complexity of maintaining a Windows machine, well, there. The other selling point is that S Pen, which is Wacom EMR, which if you watch my tablet PC reviews, Windows-based ones, and tablets for artists, drawing tablets, it's the best experience you're going to get. The Apple Pencil is, I would say, just as good as it, but in terms of all the other digitizer technologies that are out there, for example, Surface Pro uses Microsoft Pen Protocol, otherwise known as N-Trig, and not as good, not as smooth. The lines aren't as fluid. You have to do things like turn line smoothing on if you're an artist, and you need to have, well, silky smooth predicted lines. So it is lovely there. I just wish there were more great art apps. It's not like there are none. There is Sketchbook. You even get Clip Studio Paint, a special port just for Samsung. Usually it's only available on Windows and iOS. And that's kind of nice to have too. That's a subscription-based model, but you do get your first 6 months free with this tablet when you register. So there are some alternatives, not like there's nothing. There's Art Rage and all that sort of thing, but it's nothing like Procreate. Probably it's going to be late to the game getting those nice Photoshop ports that, well, Adobe's been working on, they've been doing on the iPad. They try to bring as much of desktop Photoshop as they can to a mobile OS experience. So that's the hurt. But you know what? Given the choice between drawing on a Surface Pro 7, this is me, or drawing with the S Pen on Android, I would suffer through the weaker app selection just because I can do better art more easily given the fluidity of that S Pen. By the way, the S Pen clips magnetically to the back, which is kind of annoying unless you use the optional case that I'll talk about in a minute. It charges, now Wacom EMR pens, the S Pen doesn't need to be charged to work. It doesn't require power. That's just there for the Bluetooth features, like the remote selfie feature or the PowerPoint control, that sort of stuff. So that keyboard case is expensive. We're getting up there with Apple prices almost now. So it's $200 for the smaller Tab S7 and it's $230 for the S7 Plus. That's a lot of money. So you're looking at over $1,000. You are looking at Surface Pro 7, even with the type cover, if you go with like a Core i5 kind of pricing. So you have to ask how much you want a mobile OS versus Windows, right? Anyway, it's a very nice keyboard. I like the way the keys feel on this. The trackpad is pretty good. It even supports things like gestures insofar as Android supports those things and DeX supports those things. It's a nice experience, and I really like the fact that it's a two-part case. So you know how it is, you want to just rip the keyboard off because you're just going to be using it in tablet mode, but you still want something to protect the back and something to stand it up. So it has that kind of hinged back, sort of like the way the Surface Pro does, built into that case. Stays on pretty well, so that's pretty versatile too, and it's a pretty easy to clean, man-made kind of finish. God knows what it's made of, nylon, plastic, something like that. I don't know. So that's the good stuff there. On your lap, it's not super balanced. I mean, that's part of that kickstand design too, compared to a laptop. Oh well. And, you know, it's not as easy to control as Apple's iPad Pro most expensive keyboard, the one that floats the tablet up in the air, but what can I say? It's pretty good stuff. So battery life, the smaller tablet has an 8,000 milliamp battery. The larger one has a 10,090 milliamp battery. So that's a lot of juice, right? So it, it depends on what you do with it, which is also sort of true of the iPad Pro, to be honest. So I can get 8 hours on the Tab S7 Plus, even with that power-hungry OLED display, if I'm doing light stuff. If I'm doing things like drawing and painting and all that sort of thing, or playing games, or, you know, you get the idea, more demanding stuff, it can be a 5-hour tablet pretty easily. So that's the cost of having a powerful tablet and a very bright, colorful display on this. This does support 45-watt fast charging, which certainly helps with that. Lastly, the selfie camera, which is 8 megapixel, is now centered along the long side. In other words, for use in landscape. Thank you so much. I hope that Apple does that someday with the iPads as well, because I think that's how most of us are probably using these tablets most of the time. So that's the Tab S7 and S7 Plus, and they are beautiful pieces of hardware. There's a lot to like about them. The challenge is the Android ecosystem and also the pricing here, because once you're looking at spending $1,000 or more on these, especially if you include the keyboard or you go for a little more storage or something like that, you're looking at the competition, which is, wow, I can get a real, quote-unquote, Windows PC and a Surface Pro 7, for example, or even a Surface Pro 6 and save yourself some money. And then there's the iPad Pro, which is always the 100-pound gorilla in the room for having a great selection of tablet apps and a great accessory ecosystem. So it's not all Samsung's fault, but it's just a tough market to be in, the high-end Android tablet market. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and thumbs up if you like this vid.